Okay, so this time I have a game versus dwarfs, and the first thing you'll notice when we look at the list is that there's a lot of core in both our lists, and that's because we agreed to both bring lots of core, and that's one of the ways you can switch it up in this game. You don't always have to bring an optimized list. As long as both players agree, you can just decide to bring lots of core, and that's what we did here. And you'll see it's a pretty close game, so yeah. Okay, let's go quickly over the dwarf list. So he's got a king. He's kitted out defensively. A bunch of runes. The only offensive rune he has is the Rune of Fury, which gives him an extra attack, I believe. And of course he's got the Feign, and interestingly enough, he does not have a battle standard, which is an interesting choice. And they both have hold stones. The Dragon Seeker, he's a really terrifying model for ogres. And unfortunately he's not kitted out to hunt monsters with the Monster Seeker upgrade, which would give him multi-wound against ogres, and so he does not have it here. He has a bunch of clan warriors with shields, marksmen, and then greybeards, and the Seekers. And the Seekers are the one unit I'm terrified of with ogres. So I'm going to have to find a way to manage those. Again, redirect, and hope they don't get into my ogres. Possibly match them up against my scraplings. And some miners for some ambushing. And seekers to possibly do some chaff or manage characters or any other duties like protect war machines. Because there you go, he has a ballista. Okay, let's go over my list. I have a Great Khan, he's the general. He's got the Crown of Scorn because I'm not taking magic, because I think it's not great when you have the Hellfist. You have to take Thaumaturgy. So from now on I will not take magic. So the Crown of Scorn is there to provide an automatic dispel once per game. The Hellfist is the reroll across the table, so like a battle standard, but that doesn't die and you can't get points for, which is kind of funny because if my general dies, it still works. The Kagadai's Maul gives me a great weapon that does D3 wounds, and the Mammoth Hide Cloak so that the strength is limited to 5 max against the general. And I have a Mammoth Hunter on foot on a 50mm base, and I'll explain why. Axebreaker Gauntlet is not that useful. It has a chance to break a magical weapon, but it's mostly there just because it's an Iron Fist. And an Iron Fist mundane weapon is only 10 points cheaper, so I just decided to go with the Axebreaker Gauntlet because I had points left over. And the Iron Fist is really important in this build because it allows the hunter to parry, and I'm often against higher weapon skill models, so that's nice. And it helps his armor, and even provides a boost to initiative and attacks. The Dragon Mantle gives him a 5-up innate defense, leader of the pack, I'll explain why after. An Ogre Crossbow that doesn't do that much because he's pretty mobile, so he takes penalties from moving and shooting. But I fought against dwarfs, you know, the Hunting Spear is not going to do much because he doesn't have monsters. The Potion of Swiftness is just there because I had 10 points left over and could provide a possible boost to initiative. Again, not that useful against dwarfs because they have low initiative. And Troll Eater is the key one, so that's the big name that gives him 4-up regen and Stupidity. Now, the Stupidity is neglected by the fact that he's already Leadership 8, and with the Hellfist, any model rerolls across the whole table, so even if he's very far away from the general, it doesn't matter. He's always going to reroll that Stupidity test. And so he's at 3-up armor and parrying, and 4-up regen, so he's pretty defensive as a character. His strength is only 5, and with only 5 attacks, he's not that great at killing stuff, which is kind of unfortunate. And you're limited as to how many magic items you can give him. So there you go. And he's on a 50mm base because I can join him up to Sabertooth Tiger and vanguard him up the flank, hopefully, and get him into a nice position there in the beginning of the game. And for my core, I got here 11 tribesmen, full command in Iron Fist, and that's where I'm going to put my Great Khan. So he's going to provide them good leadership because they have only leadership 7 and the Great Khan has leadership 9. 65 scraplings with foremen and shields for parry. And they have musician and standard bearer. And the foreman is there to provide the hold the ground rule. And the scraplings, my idea was to deploy them close to the Great Khan because the Great Khan will provide his leadership, the inspiring presence. And another pack of 8 bruisers with full command and the veteran standard Skull of Quanget. Skull of Quanget is nice on the bruisers because if ever the enemy fails the fear check, they're going weapon skill 1, so the bruisers will have an easier time hitting, and when they hit, it's even more devastating because they have a great weapon that's strength 6. So there you go. You can see that's a lot of core troops right there. It's over 2,000 points. And I thought, you know, why not? It's he told me he was bringing a lot of core, so I'll see what I can do. I have a lot of models to do it, so there you go. Kin Eaters, which are hilarious. They're really lots of fun to use. They don't kill that much, but they're really great at holding up units with regeneration 5+, and 4 wounds each, and they're unbreakable, which is a key rule for them. And they're just perfect. They're good at delaying big blocks, so that's how I use them. Unfortunately, they can't vanguard, but that's okay. They move 6. Leadership is a problem for them, but since they're unbreakable, it almost never matters unless they are taking a march check, I believe. So sometimes they have problems marching, but we'll see what happens. Saber-toothed tigers, and they are just perfect for me. I mean, I love these guys. They just delay Death Stars or stuff that I can't deal with. Usually I have mercenaries, but in this game you can see I don't have mercenaries, so it's going to be a little bit more interesting than the usual battles you'll see, because I don't have that hammer unit, so I'll have to rely on my blocks here in the core choice to get the job done. And then I also have two units of 2 Yetis, which are just really nice and fast and can avoid units and get rear charges and stuff like that, and even chaff if they have to. And 4 bombardiers because I kind of have to take them because I don't have any other models that are painted, but they can do work. But against dwarfs, I'll be honest, they're not that great. Maybe yeah, against dwarfs, never really good. Mostly good against small units of cavalry or elves with low toughness. But against dwarfs, I wish I could replace them with something else. Soon enough, I will be able to. Okay, so here's what deployment looks like after Vanguards. My opponent got to choose sides, so I let him deploy first, and he decided to drop his entire army, which is really great for me. And again, that's usually what my opponents do, because I have so many small units that I can usually out-deploy them. They decide to secure the first turn instead. So you'll see a better picture after, but I decide to line up the scraplings right up against that wall so I can go and defend it on the first turn and take advantage of the fact that there's a big block of seekers right in front of it. So hopefully my scraplings will be able to hold the seekers there for many turns and stop them from getting into my ogres. On the other side, I decide to put all my vanguarding units and vanguard them up as fast as possible with 1 unit of Yetis there. And you can see the Mammoth Hunter with the wolf there, and even a 3rd wolf behind. And on the other flank, I have a unit of Yetis that vanguarded up. So we are playing a frontline clash, and the scenario is flags. So we have to pick 3 scoring units on the other side that we have to try and destroy. And he picked my bombardiers, the tribesmen, and the scraplings, and I picked his clan warriors, that unit of graybeards on the right side in front of my bruisers, and the marksman in the center. Okay, here you can see the Mammoth Hunter and the unit of Yetis, and the wolf that's there, and they decide to vanguard up. Okay, so here you can see at the far edge there, the bruisers. I put them there because I think they can take on that unit of clan warriors quite easily. And the scraplings are there right in front of the wall. I'm hoping I can go defend the wall as fast as possible. and a unit of King Eater beside them for redirecting, and there's even a wolf right there as well. And behind the hill, the tribesman unit, so that they don't get shot, and the bombardiers beside them, close to the general, because they have low leadership, and the scraplings also have low leadership, so I put them next to the general. And the King Eater is on the other side for redirecting the Seeker block that's right in front, the giant Seeker block with the Dragon Seeker inside. Okay, from left to right, here's my opponent's battle line. He actually has 2 units of Greybeards, so the one on the left is Greybeards, and then the Vengeance Seeker behind, the unit of Seekers right next to them, and then the third unit there from the left is another unit of Greybeards with the Fane inside, and then he has the Marksman with handguns, and after that he has that Ballista in the forest, and then the unit of Clan Warriors with shields, and then to the right the unit of 25 Seekers with the Dragon Seeker inside. Okay, so my opponent took first turn and pretty much moved his whole battle line forward, except even the Marksman, actually he moved them forward, and he ended up shooting 3 scraplings with them. Okay, so you can see the dwarf units pretty much marched forward, even up onto the hill there with the Yetis. During my turn, I dodged that unit there on the right to go into his flank. Unfortunately, the Vengeance Seeker able to see me, and the Bruisers went forward just a little bit, but about 13 inches away, or 12, to make sure he could not charge me, but I could still charge him. And here you can see the center of my line moving forward there, and here I made a mistake, because when I placed the terrain, I remember the wall is actually 21 inches from the edge of the board, and because the scraplings deployed 12 inches away from the board, and they move 8 inches when they march, they can't go up to the wall, so they can't defend the wall, which changed my whole strategy, because it means he could just charge me and ignore the wall. So what I was forced to do is take that wolf there to try to block the Seekers and try to make sure that they couldn't overrun into the scraplings by putting the King Eater right behind the wolf. So it was a little bit of a tricky situation there, but that's the final position there. Okay, so here you see the bombardiers there moved up and shot into the Seekers, but they did nothing. The Seekers have a 6-up ward save anyway, so I think I killed 1 or I killed none. It didn't really matter. The King Eater moved up as well. The Yetis moved up, but not so much, because I didn't want to take a charge from the Clan Warriors right there. The Mammoth Hunter, he just goes outside of the arc of the Seekers, and the Wolf gets activated and goes to block the Seekers. That Wolf is behind the Yetis there because I don't want him to get shot by the Marksman over there in the forest, or that Ballista. So here you can see a very interesting situation. So he goes and closes the door against that wolf there. But since he's not able to completely close the door because of the unit on the left that's blocking him, the wolf has to then close the rest of the way in order to align, which means that the overrun angle changes. And that was what I was afraid of, that it would make him overrun into the scraplings, and that's why the King Eater is there to block them and stop them from reaching the scraplings, because the scraplings cannot defend the wall because they're too slow. Here's what it looks like with the other Seeker block. He just charges the wolf, and here you can see he just moves up his Greybeards, doesn't even charge, just moves them up at 9 inches, I believe, and the Vengeance Seeker over there is going to go ahead and charge the Yetis. My opponent's turn 2 shooting. The Marksman and Ballista open up on the Tribesman and kill 2. So that's 6 wounds, and that's pretty devastating. I mean, those are Ogres, so they're not the cheapest models to lose. And you know, I did what I could. I marched really fast with them, and hopefully he'll only be able to shoot me once or twice. That's what I was hoping. And my armor save is only 5 up, and the handguns are strength 4 and armor piercing, so I get no saves against it. And the Marksman did not move, so they did not take a penalty for moving and shooting, so a pretty good round of shooting there from my opponent. Okay, we go into combat, and the first one is up. It's a Vengeance Seeker against the Yetis, and this one's not even close, guys. I mean, this was utterly devastating for the Yetis. He's swinging at initiative, ridiculous initiative 8 or something like that, with many attacks, and he just murders them, no problem. Not even close. Couldn't even not even close to matching up with the Vengeance Seeker there. So Yetis are just utterly destroyed. And I think he ended up catching them and off the table. So he'll be coming back on the next turn. Okay, so here the Seekers easily kill the Wolf and overrun into the Kin Eater. Okay, so here on the other side, the Seekers with the Dragon Seeker kill the Wolf, and here's what the final position looks like. I decided to not overrun with the Seekers, instead choosing to pivot with them, and he pivots face forward, so presenting his flank to the Mammoth Hunter. Okay, on my turn I declare a charge of the Tribesman into the Marksman, needing a 7 on the dice, and I made it. Unfortunately, he stood and shot and killed another entire Ogre, because dwarves don't take penalties for standing and shooting. Now here I charge with the Mammoth Hunter into the Vengeance Seeker. I don't want to charge into the block of Seekers there because I think eventually the Seekers will grind out and eventually end up killing the Mammoth Hunter. Even if I hold them there for a few turns, I'll lose too many points with the character, so I decide I might just kill the Vengeance Seeker outright. And so that was my plan. So I go ahead and roll. He is movement 7 and Swift Stride. So I needed a 5 on Swift Stride, and I ended up missing and rolling a 2, a 2, and a 1. So there you go. He misses the charge. Okay, so here's what it looks like after my movement phase is over. And you can see on the right side, the Greybeards get charged by the Bruisers, no problem. They get in automatically. And the gigantic block of Scraplings ended up flank charging the Seekers, which is perfect for me. That's exactly what I wanted. I'm presenting the flank to the Clan Warriors there. Or the Greybeards, sorry, the Greybeards with the Fane. But, you know, that's not that bad. They're Scraplings, they're not even 600 points, so if I can tie up 2 units, that's perfect. They're doing their job as far as I'm concerned. And the Tribesmen made it into the Marksman. So there you go. The Bombardiers moved up as fast as they could, I believe. Or no, they moved up 6 and shot and didn't do anything. And the Kin Eater moves up and blocks the Warriors there. And that Wolf blocks the Seekers again for another turn. With the Mammoth Hunter stranded there because he missed the charge. And here you can see the Yetis. They decide to not move forward too much because I want to see where he ends up with the overrun before I commit. And that way I'll be able to just avoid the units or chaff or block them depending on where they end up. It's too hard for me to predict where they're going to be, so I just end up hanging back, and so I can block them for an extra turn after. Okay, so here's a picture of what it looks like on that left side, where I'm just trying to block his units. And you can see this combat here, they kill the Kin Eater outright, but I do have my Scraplings, and so he does, you know, kill a bunch of them. I think 5 or 6, but I'm steadfast because I just have so many of them, so they stick. So this was actually a very risky point in the game for me because the general had charge of the Tribesmen further than Inspiring Presence range for the Scraplings, which meant they're only Leadership 6, so they're testing on Leadership 6, and he challenged my Foreman out of the unit, and I ended up accepting because my plan was to have him hopefully survive and provide the hold the ground rule, but he ended up dying in the challenge. So I could not re-roll the leadership test, and it was leadership 6, but I still made it. So that really helped me out, that lucky dice roll there. And you can see here I end up reforming into ranks of 5, and it's one giant movement tray, and so I don't want to take the time to individually remove all the models, so I just turn them to the side, which is kind of convenient, even though it looks a little bit funny. But they are facing forward 90 degrees there. Okay, in this picture you can see the Tribesmen that just mowed down the Marksmen, no problem, and pursued them and caught them. But they will have to spend a turn to turn around in the next turn. Okay, so here you can see what the battle ends up looking like at the end of combat. He missed all his rolls and didn't do a single wound, while I killed, I think, 5 or 6 dwarfs. That's what it looks like anyway in this picture. Okay, my opponent's third turn, and nothing much interesting happened in the movement phase, except that he turned around that Greybeard unit with the Fane to face the Tribesmen that were turning their back to everyone. And the Ballista moved out, I believe, and then shot the tribesman and killing another ogre. Okay, so you can see this is what the combat looks like at the beginning. The scrappling foreman was dead in the first round, so he's just there in this picture, but he's actually dead. So he kills a few scrapplings, but I end up being steadfast. So the general is out of range, unfortunately, so I need to roll a 6 or less, and I fail. And he decides to pursue with the Seekers, and I roll an 8, and he rolls a 7. So unfortunately for him, my scrappling unit gets away. So here's what it looks like after the pursue and flee moves, and they are all facing away from the Seekers there, running away towards the Bombardiers. Okay, so here the Greybeards with shields against the Bruisers, and the Bruisers just completely destroy them there almost. They only take 1 wound and manage to kill all of them, even with the shield wall. Okay, so over here the Vengeance Seeker and the Mammoth Hunter just grind. They do no wounds to each other and just stay in combat. Seekers charging the Wolf again and obviously kill him. The Clan Warriors charge the Kin Eater there and slip a wound on him, and they just beat him with static combat res. But the Kin Eater, he's amazing, he's unbreakable, so he keeps him there another turn. Okay, now it's my turn, and now that I know how his Seeker unit is angled, I can take the Yetis, and they barely made it around his arc there. With their 14-inch move and the light troops, they're able to just squeeze out of his arc of vision, which is really nice for me. Unfortunately, I can't turn them to face the Seekers because that would be an illegal move. They would make it more than 14 because you can't move double your move in terms of displacement. Okay, so here the Bombardiers run forward. They don't even move 6, they move a full 12 towards the bolt thrower, and that was a bit of a silly move because he can just dodge my arc there, so not really the greatest decision there. Okay, so the tribesmen swift reform and move towards the Greybeards and the Bruisers as well. Here's a picture of my scraplings rallying and turning to face the Seekers. Wow, boy, they must be so annoying for the Seekers there. Alright, so the Kin Eater takes another wound and kills 1 or 2 of them, I think, and holds them there for another turn because he's unbreakable. Okay, so here the Greybeards with the King and Thane charge my unit of tribesmen, and the King goes into a challenge with the my Great Khan that I issue, I believe, and he ends up only doing 1 wound on mine, and I end up killing the King with the D3 wound great weapon. Okay, here he charges the scraplings. It looks like there's still a lot, but we're actually just using dice to represent how many scraplings died, because at this point the store's almost closing, so we don't have time to individually remove the scraplings from the movement tray. Okay, so here I believe the Mammoth Hunter, he's almost dead there, he's got 1 wound left. He managed to kill the Vengeance Seeker, and he pursued him with Swift Stride and ended up just shy of the Seekers, which is nice because I don't really want to charge them. Okay, so here you can see that during my turn the Bruisers charged into the combat of Greybeards versus Tribesmen, and the combination of both the Tribesmen and the Bruisers end up chasing and catching that unit that fled from the battle, and they are just shy of the combat there with the Scraplings and Seekers. Okay, in my turn the Clan Warriors finally end up killing that annoying Kin Eater that was slowing them down. Okay, so here you can see the position at the end of the game. My opponent had already packed up his 2 blocks of Seekers and the block of Clan Warriors there because the store was closing, so we had to pack up our stuff really quick. So it ended up being a major victory for the Ogres, 15-5, just the VPs, because the Ogres took the King, the Thane, the Marksman, the 2 units of Greybeards, and a Vengeance Seeker. The Dwarfs only managed to kill 2 Kin Eaters, the 3 Saber-Tooth Tigers, and 1 unit of Yetis. So the Ogre Khans end up winning 18-2 because the Ogres took the objective by killing the 2 units of Greybeards and not losing any scoring units. Now, unfortunately, we only managed to play 4 turns, but I don't think it would have made a difference in terms of the objective because I can always flee on the 5th turn, rally on the 6th, and he only has 1 turn really in close combat, and I can always slow him down with the Yetis. So there you go. Okay, so here are my thoughts about this game. What the dwarves did well, I find, was the shooting. I mean, I didn't have any counter to the shooting that he brought, and I think with a little bit more shooting elements in the list, I would have really struggled even more against it. My list has trouble dealing with shooting because I have a lot of small units and not much counter to shooting. I just run forward and that's it. So I think maybe including more marksmen or even the guild-crafted upgrade on the marksman would have been nice. So that's what I think the dwarfs, their strong point was the shooting there in this one. What I think the list lacks is a bit of the strong options that are available to the units and characters that were taken, like the Dragon Seeker upgrade and the Battle Standard option. It's just not quite optimized just yet. So a little bit of things to look at in terms of list building there. Also, you know, the idea of deploying your whole army first to secure first turn, I mean, it's okay, but in that case, you really want to use the options that the dwarfs have in terms of vanguarding, because when you're going first, vanguarding is really powerful if you want to push your opponent against the back line of the board. And there were no vanguard units in his list, so it's kind of an interesting. Well, it's too bad, really. And then also by deploying the seeker units early, he's letting me counter deploy by just positioning my redirectors right in front of the units and eliminating them from entering the game. So I think that's one improvement that he could make, is make sure he doesn't give away where the seekers are going to be, because dwarfs are not that fast. They're good at marching straight forward, but when you ask them to do any wheeling or swift reforming, things like that, they're slow. So I can just dodge their arcs and just chaff them up. So it's tricky. You can't reveal your hand too early when you're deploying your strong seeker units like that. And I also had a problem managing the amount of chaff I had, because I think I mean, he did have some shooting, but they were mostly targeted on I think some targets that were not the best, like the tribesmen and scraplings have enough wounds in the unit that it's not gonna make a difference. It's like a drop of water in the sea, you know. So maybe targeting the shooting units at the smaller units would have made a bigger impact, like shooting the Yetis or shooting those tigers could have meant an extra turn with the seekers to be able to enter the combat against my big units. So for the Ogre cans, I would say the matchup control was very nice. I was able to just counter deploy perfectly and focus my attention on the scoring units so I could get the objective. And the seeker blocks took him out of the game. I did, however, have some points that I could improve on, like I underestimated the Vengeance Seeker, which is, I mean, you know, it takes experience to know what those dwarf units can do, and I think those little dwarf single model units are highly maneuverable and so versatile. I mean, you can send them against any small units and expect them to do a lot of work. They can protect war machines. They're just really nice units. And again, pursuing them with the general, right? So I'm positioning the general close to the scraplings so that he can provide inspiring presence, and then I get really greedy and I keep him inside the unit so that I can pursue the Greybeards, which was I would say was a bad decision on my part. I got away with it because I was lucky, but the next time I will. I mean, I might just leave the general out, charge the general out of the unit, and then charge just the tribesmen on their own. Maybe that would have been the better way of doing it, or just finding a better solution with the scraplings there, because that's something that I got to think about for the next game, is how can I make sure that the general stays close to the scraplings, but also not make sure he doesn't get overrun or pursued too far away, which is it's tricky, because the scraplings you want to play defensively. You don't really want rush out there in the middle of the field and get combo charge with a giant unit like that. So you know, it's something that I got to review and maybe do it differently next time. And the Bombardiers are a disappointing unit against Dwarfs, you know. They don't never do much. Dwarfs have high armor and toughness, so Bombardiers never score any wounds. They were just there for scoring. And again, as soon as I can bench them and replace them with something else, I will, once I paint another unit. But I do like them still against, very nice against elf cavalry, or you know, small units of maybe humans or elves. Were really nice against low toughness models. And if I have a pyromancy shaman, I can always cast the flaming swords on them to grant +1 to wound. So that's a nice option there. But yeah, in this matchup, in this against this dwarf list, it's very disappointing. So the next time against dwarfs, I might use some Tuskers or Rock. Yeah, Rock, or maybe even a Hunter on Tusker. So we'll see. Okay, so for the most valuable units or characters in both armies, for the dwarfs, I would go for the Vengeance Seeker in this one. I mean, the one Vengeance Seeker nearly killed an Ogre character worth 3 times his points, and just absolutely brutalized one Yeti unit. So for that, I have to recognize the amazing offensive abilities of those Vengeance Seekers there, and their flexibility of just, I mean, being a single model character that can run around. You know, it's really nice what those characters can do. For the Ogre Khans, the Saber-Tooth Tigers, I would say they pretty much won me the game, taking out taking the Seekers from taking them out of the game, and allowing my other units to do their job on focusing on killing the scoring units. So there you go. Anyway, it was a really great game against a great opponent, and I'd play him again. We'll see what he brings next time. He might bring Orcs and Goblins, or his Vampires again. We'll see. So I hope you enjoyed the video, and I'll see you on the next one.